Good evening, friends. How are you? Hope you all are doing good. So, friends, from today onwards, we are going to start with the 10th standard NCRT. Okay, so hope you all are ready. So, friends, this chapter is mostly, this entire NCRT is mostly revolving around the resources. Okay, so these chapters already we have seen in 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th standard NCRT. So, little bit of advanced information is given in this chapter. So this chapter we are going to see, and when I'll come in the class, again we are going to see the same chapters. Okay. So let us start with the resources and development. So when we say resources, what is the definition of resources? Okay, what is the definition of resources? So resources is anything that is found in the environment surrounding us. Okay, so anything, for example, uh, a soil can be a resource, water can be a resource. So it is available in the environment. Second thing, which can satisfy our needs. Definitely, it should satisfy our needs. Third, it should be technologically accessible. Now, certain resources are there in our environment, but they are not technologically accessible. For example, shale gas is available in India, but it is not technologically accessible for India, so it is not resources right now. Okay, then it is should be economically feasible. To take out those resources, economic feasibility is the most important thing and culturally acceptable. So certain animals are there who can be used as a meat, but culturally they are not acceptable, so we cannot consider them as a food resources. Getting it? So these are the five important things they should satisfy the criteria to call something as a resources. Okay. Now, can environmentally available material can be called as a resource? No. So human being is at the center to convert these material into the resources. So soil, if it is lying there, you will not call it as a resource. But when human beings takes that soil and extract iron ore from that, then you will call it as a resource. So transformation of the material is important. Then only it can be considered as a resource. So resource is nothing but a function of a human activity. It is an outcome of one of the human activities. It is not as such present in the atmosphere which is ready-made available for you. You have to convert resources from certain thing. Now sunlight is available over there. Can you call it as a resource? No. Until and unless you make a solar panel by use of a technology, till that time you can't call them as a resource. So human beings is one of the important factor which converts environmental material into resource. So to make the interaction you require human beings. So human beings use the technology. Technolo- Technology is utilized to extract the physical environment, and to do this entire thing we set up an institution. So for all these things, human being is at the center. So by using the technology, we are converting physical environment into useful resources, and we set up the institution to extract that physical environment or that physically material which is available into the environment for our purpose. Getting it? So human being is the most important thing in all these things. Now, when we are calling resources, there are different types of resources. So types depend upon our classification. So classification can be done in four types. Okay. So all the resources in the environment can be classified into four types. So first, on the basis of their origin. Okay. So on the basis of their origin, we can classify them into biotic and abiotic resources. So on the basis of origin means where they are originating, whether they are originating as a life living resources or whether they are originating as a non-living resources. So water, air, fire, the space, all these are the abiotic resources or non-living resources. Animals, birds, forests, plants, and human beings, they are all biotic resources. Then, second thing, on the basis of exhaustibility, whether particular resources can be exhaust if we are using them in a huge quantity, or we are using them without any proper conscious manner. So we can call them as a non-renewable resource. Okay, because unconsciously you are using this, they cannot be, they once they are used, they are finished. Their stock cannot come back. And another is a renewable resources, like you have sunlight. So today you have a sunlight, tomorrow also you are going to have sunlight. Today you have a wind, you have a waves, day after tomorrow also it will be there. It will be there even when you are dead. Getting it? So these are called as a renewable resources, because every day in the same quantity they are available to you again and again. Non-renewable means once they are finished, their quantity is not available for you for your use for next 100 years or 1000 years. Getting it? So on the basis of exhaustibility you are calculating them as a renewable and non-renewable. Third is on the basis of ownership. So either an individual is owning something, or a gram panchayat is owning something, or a village is owning something, or a city or nation, or it is a global common, or we call it as an international resource. So on the basis of ownership, you are calculating them into the four types. So for example, a pasture belongs to gram panchayat or a village. A well which has a water belongs to an individual. Getting it? Iron ore belongs to the nation. A river belongs to the nation. And certain rivers which are international rivers like Danube rivers, international rivers, Brahmaputra river, international river. So in this way, these on the basis of ownership, they can be classified into the various types. Then, on the basis of status of development, you can classify them as a potential and developed resources. So, some resources are potential. For example, let us say neutron energy. So, neutron as a source of communication is a potential resource, but spectrum, okay, that currently we are using in the mobile, they are developed resources. So on the basis of development, you can classify them as a potential or developed resources. So these are the way of classifying the resources. Now, friends, there are again two important definitions called as a stock and reserves. What do you mean by stock? Stock, as I said you have something resource available, but you don't have a technological know-how. There is no technological, as we have seen. We need human beings, we need technology, and third thing, we need institution to convert any material into resource. So right now you don't have a technology. So you can't call them particular material as a resource. For example, shale oil and shale gas in India. So we don't have technological know-how. We cannot call them as a resource. So it will come under stock. But a particular material which can be exploited by using technological know-how, that will be called as a reserve. So reserve is a subset of stock. Reserve is a taken out of stock. So it can be taken out from the environment by utilizing the technological know-how. Okay. So friends, these are some important definitions about resources. So let us see the different classification of resources. So in this flowchart, you can see how resources have been classified into the different types. So first important way, you can classify them as a natural and human-made resources. Definitely all resources are natural, but certain we can say purely human-made resources are also there, or we can classify them as such. Natural resources can be classified as renewable and non-renewable. Renewable can be classified as a continuous or flow like wind, wave of the seas. Then biological resources like you have forest resources, wildlife. Then you have non-renewable resources. So non-renewable resources like coal, oil, natural gas. So some of them are recyclable, like metal. You have iron. So this pen is made up of iron. So now I have thrown this pen and now I can utilize this iron again and recycle them. So this is a recycling resource, recyclable. But you have a petrol in your car that once it is exhausted, it cannot be recyclable. So that is a non-recyclable. So in this way, resources, non-renewable resources can be also classified into two types. Then human-made resources. So human-made resources, like we have structures, like we have bridges, you have canals, you have wells, and institutions. So you have different institutions like educational institution is also a resource. Dhanvantari Foundation is also an institution. It is also a resource to make a future IAS officers. So it is acting as a resource to develop a good human resource. Getting it? So human made research institution is also one of the important part. Okay, so human made resource are also called quantity and quality. So quantity of anything and quality of anything depends upon the human beings. And there are quantitative resources and qualitative resources developed by the human. Qualitative resource means what type of human beings, like what type of education you have been given to them, what type of health is given to them. So qualitative resource. Then quantitative resource means what? Quantitative resource means you are creating this much kilometers of road, you are creating this much hospitals, getting it. So these are the quantitative resources. So in this way, resources can be classified into the various types. So this flow chart is very important from your mains point of view. So answer writing, you can simply write down this flow chart without wasting much of a words. So you can explain so many things in less amount of words. Now friends, let us understand when we are talking about resource, let us understand development of resource. What is the development of resource? So when we are saying development of resource, okay, so first important thing to understand why need to develop the resource. What is the need of development of the resource? Okay, so important aspect for this is indiscriminate usage of the resource should be avoided. So people are using resources indiscriminately. For example, water. One of you, one of you is taking one bucket of water in the morning for the bath. Some of you is taking 10 buckets of water in the morning for the bath. So one activity can be done in both the ways. So one is an indiscriminate usage of the resource. For that purpose, we need more resources. Some people are using judiciously, some people are using non-judiciously. So continuous demands of the resources is there. So that's why we need to develop the resources. So what are the problems associated with the indiscriminate usage of the resources? For that we have to develop the resources. So first is if you are using indiscriminately any usage, then it leads to accumulation of the resources. Getting it? So one person is using more. So because of that, what is happening? Society gets developed into the haves and have-nots. You have learned about Karl Marx a little bit. So haves and have-nots. So some people are rich, some people are poor, because one has accumulated indiscriminately. Either it is land, it is water, or it is a forest or something, timber, whatever it is. So it leads to two categories of the people. One is rich, another is a poor. Money is also resource. Somebody is doing corruption and accumulating more money. So what is happening? Rich and poor. Getting it? Second thing, global ecological crisis is because of indiscriminate usage of the resources. Getting it? So what are the crises that we are seeing nowadays? So you have global warming, you have ozone layer depletion, you have environmental pollution, you have land degradation. So these all the problems are because of the indiscriminate usage of the resources. So temperature of the earth is rising because you are using more cars indiscriminately. One family is having 3 4 cars, 4 to 5 two-wheeler vehicles, getting it. Then ozone layer depletion. Everybody wants to, in one home you have a TV, if you have a refrigerator, you have 3 4 ACs, getting it. So that leads to the ozone layer depletion, environmental pollution, land degradation. So indiscriminate usage of the resources is leading to the global ecological crisis. Now, let us understand how to develop the resources and why to develop the resources. Before that, now understand when we are using resources indiscriminately, discriminate a more proper judicious way of utilizing the resources by without compromising the future generation to utilize the same resources is very very important. It is called as a sustainable development. So whatever resources you are using, your future generation should also have the same resources in the same quantity. For example, you have Hussain Sagar Lake. So next generation will not have, we won't see the same lake. You have a Musi River in the Hyderabad. Your grandchildren may not see the Musi River. Getting it? So this is indiscriminate usage. But sustainable development is a concept where you are using the Hussain Sagar Lake, you are using the Musi River in such a way that future generation will also have a cleaner lake, river, they can directly go and drink water from that lake or river. So that is called as a sustainable development. So to avoid the indiscriminate, unconscious, unaware usage of the resources, we have developed the concept of sustainable development. Now, various institutions have come forward to discuss this sustainable development, okay, and under that they have developed under that various conferences have taken place. First such important conference was Earth Summit, which happened in 1992, called as a Rio de Janeiro Earth Summit 1992. So here first the sustainable development concept was discussed, okay, and they thought that we are using all the resources indiscriminately, that is leading to the global climate change, and so for that sustainable development is very very important. So here they come up with agenda 21, they come up with a clean development they come up with the convention on biological diversity, and so many protocols they have come up with. They come up with the UNFCCC, so many things they have come up with, that is only for the sustainable development. Getting it? Okay. So again, one of the important outcome was of 1992 conference was this Agenda 21. Here 21 denotes the 21st century. So agenda for 21st century is a sustainable development. So they have developed this Agenda 21 to address various issues like poverty, disease, and uh, uh, disease, and empowerment of the women, community, developing the resources, utilizing the help of the community, global cooperation. So many things together is coming under the Agenda 21. In environment, we are going to see this thing in very detail. One of the important thing of the Agenda 21 was local action. Okay, so here they have found that whatever we make internationally does not drop down to the local level. So it is better that we should come from the local level to the international level. So one of the major objective of the Agenda 21 was plan should be made at local level. So every local panchayat, or in our, for example, in case of India, every local panchayat should make their own Agenda 21, and they should compile, they should forward it the step ahead, and then compilation should happen at the international level. So this is one of the very important thing of Agenda 21. Now friends, when we are talking about Agenda 21, now let us understand about the resource planning. Now we have seen the Agenda 21. Now you know we have to use the resources sustainably. But how you are going to use the resources sustainably? So for that, resource planning is very important. Without resource planning, sustainable development is a distant goal. Why there is a need of a resource planning? Why we should do the resource planning? Why just let it not allow people to use resources the way they want? Because we want judicious use of resources. We want, there are certain regions which have a extra resources. Certain regions they have a minus resources or less resources. So regions we have which has a extra resources should transfer certain resources into the resource deficit region. For example, water is abundant in the Arunachal Pradesh. So they should transfer water to the West Bengal. West Bengal has abundant, or let us say Jharkhand. Jharkhand has abundant minerals. They should transfer it to Arunachal Pradesh. So in this way, we can exchange the resource. We can do the judicious utilization of resource. So for this purpose, we need for the balanced resource planning, okay, at all the levels, okay, at national level, at the state level, even at the panchayat level, we need a balanced resource planning. For that purpose, we need the overall resource planning in the world and in the region. So let us understand the components of the resource planning. So resource planning, it has a three it has a three important components. So what are these three important components? So first important component is you have to identify the resources. How you are going to identify? You have a satellites, you have maps, Okay, you can calculate how much quantity of the particular mineral is available, how much land is available, how much water is available. So first step, whatever thing, whatever planning you do, first step in the planning is identification of whatever stock or whatever resource that you have. Once you identify that you have this much amount of stock or reserves, then you evolve your planning structures, you evolve the institutions to exploit those resources or to utilize those resources. Getting it? So you evolve institutions, you develop technology, you develop skilled people, okay? Then these things implement your plan or implement the action. Whatever identification has been done, they will implement those criteria, those actions to utilize those resources. Getting it? So once these institutions have been developed, third stage, now you have exploited resources. Now you match these resource development according to the national, state level, local level needs. Getting it? So these all thing comes under the resource planning: identification of the resources, evolving the institution, developing the skill, and then matching the resources with the national and local and state requirements. So in this way resource planning is being done all over the places. Now, how resource planning is done in the India? So, at each and every city, each and every state, resource planning differ according to various components. Okay. So, in case of India, resource planning has been started even from the 5-year plan. First 5-year plan itself, we started the resource planning because we know we were a very poor country. Britishers came, they exploited our all the resources. So we were left with a very less resources. People were dying, famine were everywhere, poverty and health concerns were everywhere. So that's why from first 5-year plan itself, we started the resources because we already had a very limited resources, and whatever resources we had, most of them were exploited by the Britishers. So in case of India, what are the things or what are the points which played important role in the development of resources? So first thing is availability of the resources. So which area, what resources are available? Then second is the technology. What technology is available to exploit those resources is also played important role. Then quality of human resource. To develop the resource, to exploit the resource, need the quality human resource. So third thing is a quality human resource. And fourth thing is a historical experience. So resource development and planning, historical experience is very important. So how Britishers came, how they exploited, which were the people who were highly exploited by the Britishers and who were highly affected, like tribals were affected, farmers were affected, backward classes were affected. So these things play important in the development of resources. So who should get how much resources? Getting it. So depending upon the historical factors, they got this much amount of resources. So for example, government job is also a resource. So you know that right now there is a reservation system in the government job. So historical experience also led to the development and planning of the resources because resources are very limited and people are more, or even we can say the desire of the people is more. So in that case, let us understand the Gandhiji. What Gandhiji talks about the resources. Okay. So Gandhiji is very against the irrational consumption and utilization of resources because he says because that leads to all the sorts of problems. So Gandhiji's statement is very famous, which is given in your NCRT. There is enough for everybody's need, but not for anybody's greed. So that is very, very true. So for example, let us say our neighbor China. So according to their need, they have land, they have resources, they have all money they want, but they are greedy. So what they are doing, they are telling their right on South China Sea. They are saying that Ladakh is our part, Arunachal Pradesh is our part, Mongolia is our part, and all some parts of the Southeast Asian countries is their part. So the same thing Gandhiji said that if there is enough for everybody's need. Okay, if their need is satisfied, we can satisfy it even 15 billion human beings, or if our population becomes double, their needs will be satisfied. But everyone wants to live like an American, then the greed will not be satisfied. Getting it? So Gandhiji said the same. He is saying the greedy and selfish individual exploit the nature. So greed and selfish nature and modern technology is the root cause of a depletion of the nature, according to Gandhiji. If you have a time, read the book called Hind Swaraj. So in the Hind Swaraj, he has explained. This is a very small and very beautiful book. In that, he has explained how greed and technology is going to destroy the humanity in future, or in terms of diseases, in terms of depletion of the resources, in terms of the misery it is going to bring to the people. He has explained in the Hind Swaraj. So he was also against the mass production. So he said we don't want mass production. We want production by the masses. So mass production against lead to the greed. Getting it? Somebody produces on the mass scale because he is a greedy. He wants to earn more money. He wants to enjoy more compared to other people. But when there is a production by the masses, then there is a more chance of equality. If every individual started producing the same thing, then everyone will get the enough according to their need. So these are the thoughts of the Gandhiji, which are mentioned and which are in our NCRT, and they are very very important. Everywhere Gandhiji is going to come, so we have to keep watch on Gandhiji everywhere, in the polity, in the environment, all the places. So this is about conservation of resources, and this is about Gandhiji's thought on the resources. Now let us understand overall concept of this conservation of resources, how it developed. So this concept developed internationally. So first institution which spoke about the conservation of resource was Club of Rome. So they talked systematically in 1968 about conservation of the resource and need to the conservation of resource. Then in 1974, Schumacher put forward Gandhian philosophy in his book Small is Beautiful. So he want to put that how instead of going for a big, everyone is wanting something big. Okay, so instead of that, go for a small thing. So small is beautiful was put forward by the Schumacher. It was nothing but a Gandhi's philosophy that we have already seen. Then important, we can say important breakthrough came in the form of Brundtland Commission report. This report is also responsible for the Rio de Earth Summit and so many things. So it introduced the concept of sustainable development. So first, officially in the document, if someone introduced the concept of sustainable development, that is nothing but a Brundtland Commission. And the same thing has been further and they also discuss about resource conservation in the book called Our Common Future. Getting it? So these are the important development which came in the form of development of the concept of conservation of resource. Same thing has been developed in the Earth Summit 1992. So Brundtland Commission report itself was responsible for the 1992 Rio de Janeiro, Brazil Summit. Okay. So in this way, this conservation of resource, entire thing developed step by step. So now, when this conservation of resource, this concept have been developed and it has been implemented in India, let us understand the India's position in this. So most important resource in case of India is a land resource. As we know, we have very high population, but land is very less, that is 3.2 million square kilometers. So if you see how much area of land is under what utilization, so you can understand that 27% of the area is under the plateaus, 43% area is under the plain, and 30% area is under the mountain. So we have huge availability of plain, but we are not going to use all the parts. Okay, so 100% is not going to be used. Okay, so here these different factors of different utilization of land are very important. in the development of Indian civilization. Okay, so plateaus, we know that we have very rich mineral resources like Jharkhand Plateau, Chota Nagpur Plateau, Deccan Plateau. Mountains are the source of the rivers, glaciers, forest, wildlife, and here plains is a source where people are living. There are fertile plains like Ganga plains, Kaveri plains, and so many plains we have. Okay, so Krishna Godavari plains, we have so many plains. So there, fertile land which is responsible for the huge crop production and sustainable development of the human population on the Indian territory. Getting it? So these are the various land resources available in case of India. Now, what type of planning has been done in case of India to develop these land resources? So this land has been under the various land utilization or land use. We have seen the land use chapter, okay, in sixth or seventh standard NCRT. Okay, so land is under various activities in case of India. Somewhere we have forest, somewhere we have cultivation, somewhere lands are fallow. Okay, so fallow land can be two types: current fallow and other than current fallow. So less than 1 acre of agriculture land, if you are not used for production of any crop, okay, in 1 year you can call it as a current fallow. And if for more than 1 year you haven't used that land for production of a agriculture crop, you can call it as a other current fallow land. Very important from prelims point of view. Okay. Now another some land is under the net sown crop. Another area is under gross crop area. What is the difference between net sown and gross cropped area? So, for example, one piece of land in a 1 year, okay. So, for example, 1 hectare of land. 1 hectare of land, you have taken crop once in a year, okay. Or let us say 1 hectare of land is there, okay. You have taken a crop twice a year. So, the gross cropped area is a 2 hectares. Getting it? Because same crop or another crop you have taken twice a year, so gross crop area is 2 hectares. But net net sown area is only 1 hectare. Though you have taken crop twice, since net sown area is 1 hectare. So very important concept from pre point of view: gross cropped area and net cropped area. Okay, so this is the India's land utilization. Land use pattern in India has been determined by the physical factor as well as human factor. So as we know that these land utilization factor depends upon topography, climate, type of soil, and human factors like population density, technological capability, culture and tradition. These all factors are very important in developing or determining the land use pattern. So we have discussed this time to time. How topography, so slope is there, people will do terrace farming. If topography plain is there, people will do different types of activities. Climate, extreme climate is there, no agriculture. Favorable climate is there, agriculture. Fertile soil is there, one type of activity, and infertile soil is there, another type of activity. Human factor, again, population density is more, one type of usage of that land. Population density is less, another type of usage of that land. Technological capability and culture and tradition. So same land, one person can develop a temple on that. Another land, person can develop hospital on that, or person can develop, let us say, church on that, whatever. So depending upon the land use, human factors also play a very important role. Getting it? So land use pattern in India is influenced by all these things. So if you see the data on Directorate of Economic and Statistics, Ministry of Agriculture in 2017, you can understand the different activities which are consuming how much amount of land. So you can see over here, okay. So this blue color is a forest land. So this is 1960, this is 1960, and this is 2003, 2004. So here 18% land was under forest, but in 2002-3, 50, 57%. So there is a increase in the forest cover in case of India. In case of agriculture, you can see 45.26% of the area was under agriculture. 2002-3, 43% of the area was under agriculture. So less than 1% decrease in the agriculture. Getting it? Okay. So barren and wasteland in 60s was 12%. In 2003, it is 6%. Getting it? So barren land has been decreased, wasteland has been decreased, and utilization land has been increased. So prelim point of view, this is very very important. That net or forest area has gone up, agriculture area has been gone down, empty land or unused land, the quantity has also gone down. So this is the one of the important statistics mentioned in our NCRT. Now, let us understand land degradation and the conservation measures. So, why there is a degradation of land? What are the reasons for the degradation? And why do we need conservation? Or what are the conservation measures that we are taking? So, these are the different reasons for the degradation of land. Uncontrolled grazing is there, okay? So planting of shelter belts of plant, okay? So there are different reasons for the land degradation. So uncontrolled grazing is there, deforestation is there. Then what is happening? You have desertification of land because of the uncontrolled usage of fertilizers, uncontrolled usage of irrigation techniques, okay? Then there is no if there is a wasteland, it is not properly utilized. Some dumping ground will be there, some will throw garbage, okay? Then uncontrolled mining activities are there. And another thing is people will dispose their garbage, wastewater into the land. That is also leading to the degradation of land. Degradation means what? Degradation means decreasing the quality of land. So upper soil is getting lost, or its quality is gone, or it is washed away because of the water. It leads to the degradation of land. So what are the conservation methods that can be taken? So first, control the grazing. Second thing is plant as many trees as you can on the land because their roots will hold the soil. So do the afforestation. So to cut, fourth thing, to stop the desertification, you need to control the usage of the fertilizers, control the usage of chemical pesticides, control the usage of irrigation, over irrigation. Then again, mining activities. You are making you are making open mines, you are digging open mines like coal mines, then you are leaving them as it is. So what is happening? Water is accumulating in them. So they are accumulating the, we can say, poisons from the coal mine. They are accumulating in the water and it leads to the degradation of the land. Factories, what they are doing? They are disposing their waste into the land. So proper discharge of the industrial waste should be there. Getting it? So these are the various measures for the conservation measures of the degradation of land. Very important for mains point of view as well as prelim point of view. In prelim, this type of questions can be asked. So friends, this is all about land degradation and conservation of resources, sustainable development. Okay. Now let us understand or talk about soil. Soil is one of the very important resources in the India as well as in the world. Our soil is at very degrading, highly degraded. Indian soils are highly degraded. Okay, we are doing all sorts of atrocities on the soil, which cannot, if it would have been done somewhere out in the world, their soils have been destroyed by the time. But we are so fortunate, we have very fertile soil because of the Ganga and Ganga type rivers. We have very fertile soil. So it takes millions of years. This upper cover is called as a soil. It takes millions of years to develop the soil. Okay, below you have the parent rock material, and the A layer is the upper layer is a soil. Getting it? So soil is a process which takes millions of years for the formation because it requires change in the temperature, erosion, weathering, then there needs to be rainfall, then there are certain decomposers like bacteria, worms, they need to decompose the soil. So after that, the soil will be formed in the millions of years. So that's why we need to conserve the soil very judiciously or very carefully. We need to conserve the soil. So let us understand the different types of soils in case of India. Okay, so few kinds of soils are there in case of India. They have classified based on the 4 to 5 factors like their color, their texture, types of minerals present in them, what is their age, what are their physical properties. So depending upon them, we have classified the soil into for 10 to 11 times. Let us see few of them over here. So first important soil is the alluvial soil. Alluvial soil is found in the northern plains as well as Godavari basin, Krishna basin, Kaveri basin. These basins also these alluvial soils are found. But mostly our northern India is full of alluvial soils. Okay, so they are deposited by the Indus, Ganga, and Brahmaputra rivers. They are deposition of these three important rivers. So they are very fertile soils. So anything can be grown in this soil. According to their age, we have seen, I'm not going to discuss it in detail, we can classify them into the old alluvial soil and new alluvial soil. Old alluvial soil, we have seen that calcium or calcareous material is found or stones are found, and they are called as the conchers. So these conchers are, because of the concher, the fertility of the old alluvium soil or bhangar decreases. New alluvium soil is replenished every year. So that's why fertility of the new alluvial soil is very good. It is known as khadar. Next type of soil is a black soil. So black soil definitely is the characteristics of a Deccan Plateau. So Deccan Plateau basaltic lava is there, is made up of lava. Okay, so because of this basaltic lava, these black color soil has been formed. So Maharashtra, Andhra, Telangana, some parts of Chhattisgarh, central part of the Madhya Pradesh, okay, Karnataka, these areas you will see the black soil. This soil is very good for the cotton cultivation. So it is known as a Regur soil as well as known as a black cotton soil or Regur soil. Okay, so this soil is one of the very important for the cultivation of the cotton. So here the black color is because of the presence of aluminium oxides and magnesium oxides. So it is rich in the calcium carbonate, magnesium, potassium and lime, and generally very weak in the phosphorus. Okay, so phosphorus and lime content is very less in this. So phosphorus content is very less in the soil. So it is very sticky. So clay is very much in this soil. The concentration of clay is very high. Soil has a particular proportion of sand, clay and silt. In this soil, clay quantity is very high. So because what happens, it develops it becomes very sticky in the rainy season. It sticks. You cannot walk into the farm of the black soil. But in the summer, when it gets dried, it develops huge big cracks. Getting it? So that's why this soil is one of the very important source for the crops which needs lots of water, like sugarcane, because this soil will hold the water. Getting it? So as well as you have cotton, so it is also good for the cotton crop. Next soil is a red and yellow soil. Both are the same. If this soil is little bit wet, it will look yellow, and dry soil will look reddish. So because of the diffusion of iron, okay, iron content is very high. This type of soil is formed over the metamorphic and crystalline type of rocks. Okay, so what happens? Iron get diffused in the metamorphic and crystalline type of rocks. Because of this, yellow and red soil is being formed. So where does it forms? So it forms in Odisha, Chhattisgarh, part of the southern India, okay, parts of the western Ghat, Karnataka, where this soil is formed. So as I told you, when it is little hydrated, it looks yellow. When it is less hydrated, dry, it looks red. Okay, because of the content of the iron. Okay. Next soil is a laterite. Later means brick. In the Latin, later means brick. So this soil is important for the brick making. This soil is found in the extreme type of atmosphere. It is a result of the climate. It is a result of the climate. So because of the summers are very very hot, and in the rainy season there are very high rains. So what happens? Silica from the soil is getting leached. So because of that, these type of laterite soil is being developed. So it is utilized for the making of the brick. So once it is dry, it becomes very very hard. So as you know, the bricks when they are burnt, they become very very hard. So this is little bit acidic, and it is found in the part of Tamil Nadu, some part of Karnataka and Kerala and Andhra as well. Okay. So in Andhra, Kerala and Karnataka, it is very suitable for the cash crops like cashew nut. Cashew nut farming is done in these areas. So this is a laterite soil, very very important. Okay, from the pre point of view. Last type of soil is arid soil. Sorry, second last type of soil is arid soil. Arid means what? It is found in the dry areas. Why it is formed? Because of the salt content. Salt content is very high in the soil. What happens? Rainfall occurs and suddenly it gets evaporated. So salt remains on the top of the surface of the soil. So it is called as a arid soil. So it has a huge amount of salt content. It is infertile soil. Getting it? So because of the salt content, conchars, again calcium made up of calcium or lime, are formed below the top surface of the soil. So it becomes very very infertile soil. Getting it? But with a proper irrigation and proper application of some organic fertilizers, it can be developed into the very fertile type of soil. Getting it? So this is about arid soil. Next one is the forest soil. This is little bit of acidic in nature. Forest soil. Generally, humus content is very high in the soil. So when humus content is high, acidity of the soil increases. So this is little more acidic compared to other soils. So on the mountain slopes, because of you have lots of forest and lots of wildlife activities, this type of forest soil is being developed. It is very very fertile. It is very good for the we can say this uh, fruit plants or orchard cultivation or horticulture like Sikkim in and northeastern areas. This soil has been used for the growth of the forest. Getting it? So in this way, these forest soil is very very important. So these are the different soils and very important from your prelims as well as mains point of view. Okay. So friends, this was all about the types of soils. Okay. Now the last part of this comes is soil erosion and conservation. So as we have seen, the soil conservation methods, deforestation, overgrazing, controlling the mine. This mining activities is one of the important thing for the soil conservation. Okay, so there are certain definitions we are going to see again and again. Gullies. Okay, what happens because of the channel of a stream, a vertical erosion of the land happens, called as a gullies. If too much of gullies have happened, it is called as a bad land, like Chambal. You have heard about Fulan Devi. Okay, so Fulan Devi is one of the Dakat in Chambal region of the Madhya Pradesh. So this Chambal region is famous for the badland, and if these gullies become deep and deep, then they become ravine. So these things we are going to learn again and again. So these are the very important points among this chapter. In the end, they have given one case study about this Sukhomajri village in the Jabua. So how they have reversed the soil degradation. It is very important case study because of the plantation of more trees. Trees plantation and increasing the forest cover definitely lead to the area development of the area as well as development of the better soil, development of the water resources. So this case study is about that, how these people have developed the tree cover. Because of that, their agriculture flourished, their health indicator improved, their income went up. In 1979 the average income was, you can see, 10,000 to 15,000 per person. Say average income at 1980s. So at today's in today's we can say will be 60 70,000 per person. Okay, so it is huge. Getting it? So this case study has been given. So just go through this case study. It will be helpful for you for essay point of view or mains point of view. Very, very important. So I hope you have understood this chapter. Very important chapter. Now this 10th standard is going to be little lengthy. Okay. Let us understand the MCQs based on these chapters. Okay. So here, first MCQ. Which of the following type of resource the iron ore is? Renewable, not at all. Flow, biotic, non-renewable. Hmm. Iron ore is recyclable, it is not, but it is not non-renewable. So we can say it is non-renewable resource. Under which of the following types of resources does the tidal energy cannot be put? Cannot be put. Replenishable, yes, it is replenishable. Abiotic, it is abiotic. Human-made, non-recyclable, yes, it is recyclable. Tidal energy, not human-made. Sorry, I think it will come under non-recyclable. Question is not, cannot be put. It is recyclable. Getting it? It will come under human-made because human is the component. Which one of the following is the main cause of land degradation in the Punjab? Punjab. What is intensive cultivation? Yes, they have done over irrigation, they have done deforestation, overgrazing. I think over irrigation is one of the important factor for land degradation. In which one of the following state is the terrace cultivation practiced? Terrace is practiced on the slopes or mountains. Punjab, Haryana, and plains of the UP is not, they are not mountainous regions, so Uttarakhand. Which other of the following state black soil is predominantly found? Jammu and Kashmir, no. We know it is a Deccan Plateau. Maharashtra is on the Deccan Plateau. So definitely in the Maharashtra. So I hope you guys have understood this chapter. And if you have any doubt, please ask me on the social media. Thank you.